Benvenuti! Welcome to another video here on Italian Teacher Formic. Today we're going to talk about the ever so lovely and complex preposizioni. We'll talk about preposizioni semplici, or the simple prepositions, as well as preposizioni articolate, or compound or combined prepositions. Let's go ahead and start off though with making sure that we understand what a preposition even is. What is it actually doing for us in this language, in Italian? So what the idea of a preposition is a word that's linking some noun, pronoun, and or a phrase to something else. So it's taking these two individual pieces and sort of smashing them together so we have a nice, good, complete sentence, getting all the information that's necessary. And like I said, we could have a simple preposition, which they're here listed on the slide for you. We could have di, a, da, in, con, su, per, tra, or fra. Now we'll talk about what each of them means in particular, but we want to know that those are the idea of a simple preposition. And then a compound or a combined preposition here is when that's combined with a definite article. And we remember our definite articles, that's the il, lo, la, I, li, le. Those articles in particular, meaning the, when they're combined with one of these simple prepositions, we now get that compound preposition. So let's take a look at some examples. If I look at that very first one there, arrivo a New York venerdì sera, I arrive, which is the subject and my verb, my action. I'm arriving where? It's linking the rest of the idea of New York to what my verb is here. Arrivo a New York venerdì sera. Esci con Maria e I suoi amici? This idea of a question here is linking, again, our subject and the verb, esci, with somebody else, Maria e I suoi amici. So we now have the con in between to put all that together to say, are you going out with Maria and her friends? Lastly, vanno a mangiare al ristorante. This is an example of a compound preposition where we're taking the idea of vanno a mangiare, they're going to eat at the restaurant. That at the al is that compound, the combination of a plus il in particular. But let's start off with the idea of simple, and then we'll move into this compound perspective. Simple prepositions are standalone as they are here on the screen. More than likely, when you see D or even a D apostrophe, it's meaning of. Most of the time when we're seeing a, we're going to be looking at the sort of translation to at, to, or in. Da usually is from or by. In, standalone, is just going to be in. Con, standalone, is with. Su, on, over, above, or about. Per, for, in order to. And tra, fra, which are interchangeable. You could choose whichever one you want to use at that moment. Between, among, or in. Now I give you some examples down here at the very bottom. Again, these simple prepositions where it's just that preposition used by itself. Io e Federica studiamo a Milano. We study in Milan. Just by a, simply by itself. Io sono di Napoli e Federica viene da Roma. I am from Naples and Federica comes from Rome. So this idea of di and da, again, simple. Il Piemonte si trova tra la Valle d'Aosta e la Lombardia. To say between, we're putting those sort of pieces together, and tra again stays directly by itself. Simple. Let's break them down because there are a few prepositions that have some sort of special usage, and I want to make sure that we do cover each and every single one of them. So we're going to start off with the idea of a. A, again, can be at, in, or to, based on context, and it's going to be used before as a simple preposition before the names of cities, a Torino, a Detroit, the names of months, a settembre, a ottobre, and in these following expressions. Now, this is not a comprehensive list. There are many, many more. But to begin your idea of speaking in Italian in a nice, fluent, comprehensive way, it's a great option, great starting off point. A casa, a scuola, a letto, a teatro, a tavola, a piedi. Giocare a plus the name of a sport. Giocare a tennis, giocare a calcio, giocare a carte, or even a mezzogiorno, a mezzanotte. Again, when we're utilizing any of these particular words or expressions, it's just going to be the a simple preposition right in front of it. I'm going home. Vado a casa. He goes to school. Va a scuola. We're going by foot. Noi andiamo a piedi. So again, it's just the a preposition, followed then by that particular expression. Let's talk about in. In, again, could be at, in, or to. And the simple preposition of in is used before the names of regions. In Lazio, in Lombardia. The names of countries. In Italia, in America, in Canada. Continents. In Asia, in Australia. Large islands. In Sicilia, in Sardinia. Names of seasons. So if we're saying in springtime, in summertime, in primavera, in estate, whenever we're trying to use a means of transportation to refer to in or by, I'm going by car. Vado in macchina. I'm going by train. Vado in treno. You're always going to use that simple preposition of in followed by that particular mean of transportation. And in these other expressions, similar to what we saw in the previous bit with a, this idea of these expressions here, in banca, in ufficio, in piazza, in palestra, chiesa, in discoteca, in piscina, etc., etc. So you could see in simple preposition with one of these options. Again, simple, followed by that exact word. No change. What about D? D as a preposition indicates one of three things. It can indicate possession, this idea of, or even an apostrophe S. So like when in English we say George's car, the Italian lesson, Susie's book. It's this idea of the apostrophe S. In Italian, though, our actual sentence has to be in this idea of. So we actually say la macchina di Giorgio. Because we don't have that actual apostrophe S, we're saying the car of George. La lezione di biologia, the biology lesson, the lesson of biology. So you have to sort of switch up and reverse what we normally would say in English to utilize D correctly. D can also indicate place of origin in the meaning of to be from. One of the very first questions that we're ever asked in Italian when we're learning is di dove sei? Where are you from? And our response usually is sono di, and then the name of a city. Tu sei di Firenze. You are from Florence, Firenze. It could also indicate material, as what is something made from. And I use in this example the ever so delicious Nutella. La Nutella è una crema di cioccolato e nocciole. Nutella is a cream made from chocolate and hazelnuts. So it could indicate, again, possession, place of origin, to be from, as well as material. Now, da can indicate one of two things. It could be place of origin, this time, though, meaning from. And what we're saying with this idea of just from is in this example. Il treno arriva da Verona. The train is arriving or arrives from Verona. This idea of it's coming from a particular area or location. That's what I'm meaning here when I say place of origin. Da can also, though, indicate a person's place of residence or business. Oggi mangiamo da Antonella. Antonella's house is where we're going, so we're just going to simply say da and then her name. Oh, today we're eating at Antonella's. Mangiamo da Antonella. So if we want to incorporate that idea of a person's place, we can go ahead and use da to indicate that. What about per? Per in particular indicates for, as what we normally would say, Rita compra I biglietti per la partita. She's buying the tickets for the game. It could also indicate in order to. I bambini vanno a scuola per imparare. That idea of in order to go ahead and do something, followed by that infinitive. It could also indicate across or throughout. La gara passa per tutte le piazze. The race goes through all the piazzas. So per could indicate, in this example, one of these three items. What about su? Su indicates one of two things. It could either be on something. So I give you two examples here because we could see it as literally being on physically. I libri sono su uno scaffale. The books are on a bookshelf. But whenever we're going to say it's on the internet or on Facebook, on Instagram, we always say su plus that particular platform. So le mie foto sono su internet. Le mie foto sono su Facebook. That idea of su plus that platform there, you could use that as well. But su can also indicate about in the sense of a topic of a book, a movie, a play. Lui legge un saggio su Italo Calvino. He's reading an essay about Italo Calvino. So it could mean one of these two options, on something, whether it's physical or sort of virtual, digital, and about as being a topic of a book, a movie, a play, etc. Tra fra. The last two, again, these are interchangeable, so you can use whichever one you would want. And in this first example here within, when it comes to time or an amount of time, I do put tra in parentheses just to give you that other idea that I could say fra 2 giorni vado in montagna or tra 2 giorni vado in montagna. Either one, interchangeable. Now for the second example, I only picked tra just because. But that other indication could be if I'm saying between or among, in this idea of like physical location between two things. Il bicchiere è tra il piatto e la forchetta. So that's our idea of a simple preposition. And these are some times that we would use these simple prepositions in that strict manner. But if it doesn't follow one of these particular sort of rules or ideas, it would then have to be considered combined or compound. And you'll notice here, like we said at the very beginning, it's one of these prepositions, di, a, da, in, or su, combined with a definite article. Now, the other prepositions that we've talked about so far today, when we see them with some sort of definite article that comes after, they do not combine. They do stay separate. But for these here in particular, we have to match them up. We have to sort of smash them together. Di plus il becomes del. Di plus lo, dello. D plus L apostrophe, whether it's maschile or femminile, del, D-E-L-L apostrophe. D plus la, della. D plus I, dei. D plus li, degli. And D plus lei, delle. Now that same idea of combining them is going to carry on with a, with da, in, and su. And as you can see, for the most part, what they've done here is simply add that article at the very end. If you think about a plus il, we have a and then l apostrophe, or just l by itself. So a, il, al. A, lo, allo. A, l apostrophe, al. So we have that combination there. The only ones that are sort of irregular, if you want to think of them as that way, would be the idea of d changing to de and then in changing to ne, followed then by that particular article. But as you can see, for each of these individual columns, that idea of the LLE, LL, LLA, LLO, just a single L, it's straight through. So you're not having to memorize too much. It's going to be pretty clear and self-explanatory. But I want to make sure that we do take a look at some examples. If I wanted to say I study at the university, io, study, studio, at, we said was a, and then university would be l'università. Because I know that simple breakdown, I study at the university, I now take the a and the l apostrophe and make them compound, combine them together. Io studio all'università. You have your preposition there, compound, complete sentence. Let's take a look at another one. My friend's jacket is very beautiful. La giacca, the jacket, of di, my friend, la mia amica, is a very molto bella. Di plus la, della. La giacca della mia amica è molto bella. Compound, we took di plus la, like we said, put it together, complete sentence. One more. Were you born in 1990? Tu, you. Sei nato or nata, depending male or female. Were born. In, and then il plus 1990. Because we always say il and then the year. So in plus il, nel. Tu sei nato o nata nel 1990. And I had originally presented to you guys that this idea of a simple preposition, when it stands alone, followed by a continent, a country, one of those particular words, teatro, biblioteca, ufficio, chiesa, it's going to remain simple. And that is the case. But once the object that we're talking about of that preposition is modified in some way, I like to say if it becomes more specific, that simple preposition actually can become compound or combined. So I have three examples for you here. Vado in Italia. We said if we're just talking about the name of a country, we just say in Italia. I'm going to Italy. The moment though Italia is modified, vado nell'Italia del Nord, I'm going to northern Italy. We now have to combine in plus L apostrophe. Studio in biblioteca. Again, biblioteca by itself is just in. I study in the library. But at the moment I want to modify biblioteca, make it something a little bit more specific, studio nella biblioteca nazionale, because we're saying in, but now we have to use the la biblioteca. So in plus la, nella. Vado a teatro. Teatro by itself takes a. But the moment that we're specific and I'm saying vado al teatro Reggio, I'm going to the Royal Theater, we now have to combine a plus il. So always remember that these particular expressions that I gave you earlier on in this video, they are standalone, they are simple, but the moment that they're modified, the moment that they become a little bit more specific, shall we say, you have to now add them in with that definite article to get your complete sentence. Prepositions are a lot. Rewatch the video, continue doing your practice. Grazie e ci vediamo presto. Ciao ciao.